want to welcome everyone to the Media and Communication Studies Career Day, which is a collaboration between the Career and Development Center and the Communications and Media Studies Department. My name is Kaylee Ryan. I'm a graduate counseling intern here at the Career and Development Center. Throughout the day, we've had the opportunity to speak to alumni and have them join us for conversations about their careers in order to give you insight into different career paths, industries, and get advice on how to enter and thrive in these fields. As a reminder, this session is going to be recorded. We are lucky enough today to be joined by two guests, Chris Fastiggi and Khalil Thames. So welcome, both of you. To give a little bit of background, Chris graduated in 2018 with a bachelor's degree in communications and media studies. He participated in Radio 1851 and was a university communications intern supporting the St. Joe's website and magazine. He's held various other positions and roles, one of them including an entertainment marketing internship at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. And he currently is working as an event and content producer at Urner. So welcome, Chris. Khalil graduated with a communications degree from St. Joe's last May in 2021. While on campus, he was very involved in student life, was an RA, orientation leader, and member of Alpha Kappa Psi. Previously and professionally, he also held a social media marketing internship and served as a mentor for the Boys and Girls Club of Hartford County. And he is currently a multimedia specialist for the Greater Baltimore Committee. I'm excited to welcome you both back to Hawk Hill. I have a list of about 10 questions I'll be asking you, followed up by a 10 to 15 minute question and answer session from our listeners. Audience, as you guys are listening in, feel free to throw questions in the chat box, and I can share those to our guests during the Q&A session at the end as well. So let's get started with our questions. And the first questions will be career-focused questions. So for both Chris and Khalil, if you wouldn't each mind describing your current role and the core responsibilities and what a typical work day or week looks like for each of you.
Yeah, I can. Chris, you want to take it?
Yeah, I'll take it first. So as mentioned, I'm the content and event producer at a company called Urner. Real quick, what they do is they kind of track prices and commodities for different agriculture commodities like fish, meat, grain, things of that nature. I don't really work in that side, obviously. So we host a lot of events, and currently that role for me is involving a lot of research and day-to-day interviews with our customers to really find out what the issues they deal with on a day-to-day basis are, so we can build out an agenda and really plan a nice event conference for them. As well as I kind of wear a lot of hats, to be honest, because I'm also on the content team. So we do a lot of sponsorships, sponsored pieces of content, because we also have news through our platforms for different agriculture-based news. So companies can pay for sponsored pieces of content, and that's kind of where I come in. I have a journalistic background from my time at St. Joe's. So, I talk to a lot of clients about what kinds of goals that they want with their content pieces, their sponsored content pieces, whether it's a video, a webinar, article, anything of that nature. I sort of have to find a balance between whatever they're promoting and natural organic content for our readers to be interested in. So that's kind of my day-to-day, a balance between events and content. And I also have a background, my previous position was in digital marketing. So I've kind of hopped all over the place. So yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks, Chris.
Good to meet you guys. My company, the Greater Baltimore Committee, in the most simplest way, basically we're a nonprofit and we help businesses in Baltimore kind of help the overall market of bringing businesses and keeping them in Baltimore to help the Greater Baltimore region. So basically that's everything from legislation to, meeting with business leaders, all that kind of stuff. I don't really handle that side of it. I'm more on the creative side with the content. And what I do is I create audio. I work with a lot of video interviews. I do a lot of digital storytelling, that kind of thing. And basically I lead the navigation of our production and video schemes. So on YouTube, social media, all that kind of stuff. So that's in the simplest form, that's kind of what I do.
Great, thanks. And both of you, in summary, wear a ton of hats, which has seemed to be a pretty common theme across a lot of the communications and marketing roles that we've had the chance to learn about. So that's great. So moving on to our next question, and I'll ask Chris this question. At what point did you know that this career path or your current role was what you wanted to pursue, and what, if anything, led you to that decision?
So I think the building blocks of sort of working in content started when I was in college, but I necessarily didn't know particularly until I had graduated and had a few positions that this is kind of what I wanted to be in. While I was at St. Joe's, I was writing for the marketing department, and sort of, I think the skills of interviewing people and learning their stories was something that I grew to love. So I think that's kind of how I ended up in this role. And then also you kind of have to test and try things to find out what you like and what you don't like. So when I started postgraduate, I had a marketing minor. So my first full-time job was at a company called Town Square Media. It's a radio company. They do a lot of digital ads, and it's a lot of display type ads, Google search type ads. And I realized, after a while that sort of marketing and that sort of content wasn't necessarily what I was, passionate about. So I think I did something a lot of people in my age demographic did when COVID happened, was kind of take a step back and find what you really wanted to do. So I looked at what I was really passionate about in the positions I had previously. And, I've been at Urner for a few months now, and everything, I'm able to do a lot of different things that I wanted to in this new company. So things are going well.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely think it's important to highlight, what you said about sometimes it takes finding the things that you don't want to do to lead you to finding a career that you feel fits, your skill set and what you're passionate about, and to not let those moments of like, oh no, I don't think this is, the job for me, deter you from moving forward. It just could serve as another connection path to, a different opportunity. So that's awesome. And to kind of take it a step further, Khalil, what do you enjoy currently about, your profession, and what is something, even too, that you wish you could change?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think to being newly in the workforce, I think not solely my position, but just my experience of being treated as a professional, I think I've actually liked and enjoyed a lot. So a lot of my stuff is video and audio, like content and stuff like that. And so right now I'm in kind of this area, this gray area where working for higher ups that don't really know that avenue or that lane. Like how, video marketing, all that kind of stuff. And I like the thing about my job is basically communicating effectively how useful video is, and, basically, trying things out and seeing in analytics how they help our marketing and stuff like that, and seeing, seeing how video can really change and help the business grow is a really cool opportunity, because it's kind of fascinating in my role. I don't really have no one else here knows video besides me in this small company. So it's overwhelming for sure, but at the same time, it's rewarding in that I can help provide my insight and, my useful ideas as well. Something I would say that, I guess I could change, or, that I don't like so much is maybe the fact that everything kind of is self-taught right now. And, sometimes if I do have a question about, tech or equipment like that, it's not the easiest to go, and ask for help. Basically, I kind of have to go on YouTube or Google and try to navigate that by myself. But that's kind of what I would say are my pro and my con for my job position.
Absolutely. And sounds like they're definitely related, to one another. While it's great that, they brought you in to kind of be that sole person focused on video and content. When you need a little bit of support or help, you're gonna have to look and find your own resources for that. So yeah, that definitely makes sense. And Chris, so being kind of speaking to your experience in different positions and kind of getting yourself to where you are now, and like you touched on, realizing some things that you liked and didn't like, what would you say has surprised you the most about your career and career path?
Yeah, I would say that's a tough question. It's a tricky one. I would say that I think that a lot of times when you go into a position, especially at a young age when you're graduating, you kind of panic and think that there are so many things that you don't know, and you kind of feel like you're faking it till you make it, and you do in some regards. Like Khalil was mentioning, you're doing a lot of self-taught stuff. But I think what surprised me was sort of teamwork that's encouraged in office type settings, which I hadn't been too prone to that. So I think when you're starting off and you're at such a young age, people want to help. They want you to ask questions. They're really encouraging those sort of things. So when you start a new job, you're gonna have all these different skills that you have from school, internships, whatever. But I think you're constantly growing. You're constantly evolving as a professional and gaining new experiences. So training and teamwork is so crucial to that. And I think it just surprised me in that regards because I was always really anxious, I guess, about starting positions where I didn't necessarily feel like I fit fully, or didn't have the prior experience needed. Just trust in other people and really understand that everyone's trying to help you advance in your career.
Yeah, I think that's awesome advice. I think it's common for entry-level professionals to feel like they are stepping in where they need to do all the learning, and they need to look to other people for support, and the people are there to give that to them, but recognizing too that they also have a whole book of skill sets that they are bringing into this role that they can utilize, and recognizing those for themselves. And Khalil, I'm interested to hear your take on that too, as being someone who's, like you said, newer to the workforce.
Honestly, I mean, I agree with Chris what he was saying. I think it's definitely kind of bipartisan. It's kind of in two lanes. I don't know if really. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Sorry, can you repeat that? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, just from like your perspective, being newer into the workforce, like, can you resonate with what has surprised you with what Chris said, or if you have anything else to add too? Yeah.
So I think, sorry, that's why I went back to. So that collaboration aspect, I think too, what he was saying, thinking that you have to, that you have to know it all, or that you have to do it all by yourself, is definitely a cliche of the new workforce. And just like Chris was saying, I think it's very important to use collaboration to your benefit. And like it's very, at least when I got into, I was very shocked. I remember my first 2 weeks, I didn't really have much to do at all, and then I had a huge load of work to do. And at first, it was very overwhelming, and I really didn't know where to turn and like where to go. But I think really leaning on your coworkers, leaning on your support system, whatever that may be, and using that collaboration aspect is really gonna take that weight off. And also understanding that everyone there in your job started somewhere, and everyone in your workplace is not perfect. And I thought the VPs and the CEOs had it all figured out, but they're still figuring out just like you are. So I think obviously you have the internship in your title, or that the new member in your title, but it doesn't really mean too much in terms of you're still figuring out, you're still trying to grow, and everyone else there is trying to figure it out as well. So I think that was my biggest surprise just like Chris said.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So switching gears a little bit to focus on some actions that students can take, in their job search and as they're, looking for growth in terms of career and development. We'll ask some questions now focused in that area. And just a reminder to listeners, if you think of any questions or anything, feel free to throw them in the chat. So Chris, I want to ask you about your internships in just a moment, but for now, what would be about 2 to 3 experiences that you would suggest that students engage in while in college to help them prepare for entering into this field upon graduation? And if that is internships and specific kind of steps for that, that would be really great to hear about as well.
Yeah, so I guess a couple things. So one, you're probably in the right place if you're already here. Like you're using the tools that St. Joe's is providing to at least try to figure out what the next steps are. Like I remember when I was a student, I would go to all those career fairs, and I'm sure it's changed by now, or maybe it hasn't. But a lot of those were more on the business side of school, like the career fair stuff. But you were getting experience by talking to all these professionals, like just honing your interview skills and sort of your, like, I don't want to say networking because that's like such a cliche word, but just being confident in your ability to speak to people from different industries is something that I think St. Joe's did a really good job of while I was there. In terms of other experiences, I would say get involved at school. If if you're in a later time at St. Joe's, it's not too late, really. I started that internship at the marketing department my senior year. It's definitely important to get involved and follow your interests. Take classes and join clubs that are based on your interests so you can gain professional experience with those interests, and you're doing what you love. It's easy to, hone your craft. If you're, I joined the radio because I like talking about music, and then that turned into more journalistic type roles where I'm writing about music, things of that nature. And that's kind of how that was the basis for that. And internships as well would be the third thing I'd say. So I think I panicked a lot when I was at school, like, oh my God, I need to get an internship. And I remember I tried my sophomore year or junior year going into the summer, and I flopped. I started way too late in interviewing, and I ended up back at the golf club that I had worked at since I was in high school. So I would say get on the early side of applying for summer internships. That's something you're interested in. It definitely helps to be something on your resume outside of just the things you're doing at school, which are all valid. But it's just an extra step to show that you have experience in a professional workplace. And, even if you don't get a lot of that from those internships, because I've had those where, you're not doing a lot of work, you're kind of assisting more so than honing your craft. It helps on a resume, to be frank.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are all really important points. I mean, using the resources that you have around you here on campus is, they're accessible and they're right at your fingertips. But even taking it, a step further and starting your internship search early and everything. Khalil, is there anything you would add to that in terms of things that students can engage in and or internships that you found to be really pivotal for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything like, again, like with the comms department, I think it's, I think it's very, and I feel really strongly about this, but Chris kind of said it too. You don't have to, the work you do in class is awesome work, but I found so much more growth and satisfaction and happiness and doing things outside the classroom. And I think a big thing is you can do so many of those projects you do in class outside of the classroom, and it'll really, I think, teach you something moving forward. And so, having those kind of classes like the, digital fields or, your podcasting classes or even your 200s, like all those classes you're doing something, you're doing websites, website building, all that kind of stuff. You're constantly creating content. So if you find that is a thing you want to do or something you actually like have a joy in, like, nothing's stopping you at all from doing something around campus that is content based, especially now that you guys are back in person. Let your creativity flow outside the classroom, and I think your experience will take you farther than your grades or, or your hardest classes in school will. I really do think that having tangible product and tangible content to show through those experiences will get you farther at whatever job you apply for.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. And I definitely agree. I think you learn so much, like you said, inside the classroom, but, at some point you have to take it outside of, your class in your university and bring it to an organization. So it's definitely, important to challenge yourself to do that throughout your years in school. And internships obviously were something that both of you highlighted as important aspects of actions to take before, getting a job. Do you think that there are any specific types of internships that students should try to secure to prepare for a role like yours specifically? And Chris, if you want to start, and then Khalil.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the type of position that you want. From my side of things, I really wanted to follow my passion. So I did, I applied at the Prudential Center, which is a venue in North New Jersey, which does a lot of like concerts and stuff. So I applied there as an intern. And I think how I was able to get that was basically by being annoying, like on LinkedIn, just finding the people that are helpful or pertinent to that position, and reach out, say, hey, here's what I've done. It's what's the worst that happens? They say no, right? So I kind of went off track there, I guess, from the question.
That's okay.
I would say hone in on companies that you are in the field you want. Do research on the people that are working in that department already. Like, just do some stalking on LinkedIn. We live in the social media era. Like, everyone has that capability. Reach out if you can. And I would say get ahead of it, sooner rather than later.
Great.
Yeah, to add, I would say definitely like applying for things that you want is the biggest thing, but also something that is super underrated that no one does that I think everyone should do. If you have an interest in anything and just want to be taught how to do something, ask to work for them for free. Like, that is the biggest thing. If you just want to work for free, they will hire you, no doubt. Because the thing is an internship, it's like from their point of view, the employer point of view, they have to train you, they have to put equity into that. But if you ask to just watch what they do and to take notes and to really soak up everything with a sponge, I think that'll get you farther too. And so don't look at the money right away. Look at those internships as even 3 to 4 week periods. Like, I've done so many internships that I haven't even put on my resume that I've just sat there and I've just learned and I've absorbed. And the first internship I even did, I didn't want to take money on purpose, because I think that just shows you as a learner, and they'll invest in you more. And not only that, 9 times out of 10, that internship that you work for free, if you do like it, they'll 9 times out of 10, if you're a good learner, if you're a good worker, they'll see that, they'll invest in you, and they'll hire you. So I think it's a big fact, and it's super underrated. But ask to work for free and just to literally soak up everything you want to do. And so again, if you don't know what you want to do, those 2 to 3 week internship periods, like, it'll, summer, that's gonna take you far and get you the information that you need to do. So
yeah, definitely. I think those are both really important points, and I think can be applied for like your search as a whole when you're looking for internships. Like Chris, you said, going after what you want, targeting those companies that excite you, those internships that you're like, that's my dream job, that's exactly what I want to be doing. But falling back and, if you're struggling to find something, or if you're not really sure, like taking that approach that you mentioned, Khalil, and just, offering your services to develop yourself. I mean, it's a win-win situation for them and for you. You're developing yourself and learning at the same time. So, thinking about internship and also job search, Chris, I'll ask you, how did you get your first job after graduation?
So, I mean, internship or full-time position?
Full-time position.
Okay, so I think a lot of people when they graduate are, unfortunately, there might be some time where you're not you're unemployed. So I took an internship after I graduated initially, and after that ended, I did probably 4 or 5 months of job searching. It's a tough time because it's kind of grading. You're applying to all types of things. I would say how I got the job specifically was, reaching out. Like I said, I probably found my old manager on LinkedIn and said, "Hey, I just applied for this. Here's my resume." It was a digital marketing position. I had an internship in digital marketing while I was at St. Joe's. So I just tried to kind of lay out in an email or a LinkedIn message what I had done. And then from there on, it was kind of interviews. And I think after maybe 2 or 3 interviews, one in person, that was really intimidating because there was like 8 different people I talked to in the span of like 2 hours, which some of you will do. And oh my gosh, it's tough, but I think those type of interviews get to, not only are they getting to know you during that time, but you're getting to know the culture and the people that you would be working with. So yeah, I would say advice for getting a job is take a lot of the interviews you can, just to gain interview experience. And I think, yeah, like it's similar to how I got the internship and looking for the companies that I want to target, and use a lot of different types of job posting sites. So not just sticking to LinkedIn. It sounds obvious, but Indeed. I want to work in a college at one point, so higher ed jobs. Like there's so many different job boards for so many different fields. So don't just stay in one direction.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you highlight something important too, having an internship before you start your full-time job or land that first full-time job. I think a lot of people put the pressure on themselves to have that job locked down when they graduate. But just hearing, a perspective of taking an internship to just give yourself a little bit more experience and give yourself that experience that led into your decision and probably what helped you get that first full-time job. Khalil, was your experience similar? Tell us about how you got your first full-time job after school.
Yeah, so I do want to make this comment too, because I think it's important. But like Chris said, like not everyone. I think people have this ideology of like as soon as you graduate, you get a job your next month and you're employed and you love that job and it's exciting. And that's just simply just not the case, not the reality. And I think it's something that's carved up to us maybe on LinkedIn or wherever. But like regardless, I think my experience was very different. I got my first job. It didn't go so well. I ended up leaving, and that was a remote digital marketing company. And then I went back to like banquet serving. So we do a bunch of weddings and stuff like that. And I noticed there's a lot of wedding photographers there, and I'm all about film photography and getting into that. So what I first did is like I would like literally go up to like swarm these photographers and just ask them about everything from equipment to everything, how they got started, everything like that. And that's kind of was my job, was wedding planning and just that's or not wedding planning but banquet stuff. Soon after that I kept applying, finally, and then I got an offer to work at the GBC where I'm at now. But literally I can remember I was upset because I was like, I'm not, all my friends have a job. I feel like, I'm at home, I'm still working minimum wage or whatever. But I wouldn't say dwell on that, like really take that time to figure who you are as a person, because I wasn't ready for a full-time position, and I wouldn't be ready if I would have started then. So I just think it's really important to, take that time, like while you're applying, and enjoy the process of applying, because I think that's such a stressful time, but it doesn't need to be stressful. I think you should really hone in on, what makes you you. And while you're applying, you can figure out so much about yourself. Okay, like how was I in this interview? What kind of people do I want to be around? How is this office? When you walk into the office, how does it make me feel? Like all that stuff and getting rejected, like that's time for you guys to really like figure out and be with yourself and figure out who you are as a professional or independent or whatever you want to call it. But I think that's just really important. But yeah, like my experience, and I'm sure, just like Chris said, it's not all, rainbows and sunshine after you get out of college. It's definitely is, uphill battle.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the audience can appreciate, the transparency with that. I always say like a full-time job search is a full-time job in itself. You have to spend a lot of time doing it and applying, but to not forget to take the time to learn about yourself, like you said, um, learn about what you want in that moment and how that's going to impact your job search. And there was a question posted in the chat for both of you that I think connects really well to this, especially in the age of our current world. But can you share any advice or experience job searching and working in the age of COVID and Zoom?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So I think I've done both now. So I was full time in the office, and then everyone was sent home for what would be 2 weeks, and it wasn't 2 weeks. And now this is the norm. So my current role is actually part time in the office, part time from home. And I would say during the time that I work from home, I think especially when you're starting a job, you are very worried about necessarily who to ask, like how to get started on things when you're not in a physical setting with other people. So you have to reach out, like just be open and ask questions, I would say, to your managers. And if you find yourself confused about something, like it's just I see how there's a discrepancy in like communication via the at home setting versus in person. And also like try to build when you're working at home, if you're a full-time remote, try to build a culture within your set, like, because it's tricky. I worked at a company where I was best friends with everyone. We were going out for drinks after work. And then to completely have that taken away from me was, I guess it's upsetting. You have your ways of enjoying yourself after, your designated 9 to 5. So try to, find interests that you share in common with people, be friendly, talk about, it doesn't have, all work all the time when you're working from home.
Yeah, great, Khalil.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Chris. I was just gonna add, I think too, at least for our demographic, at least, I think people still underestimate the digital age that we're in, and that you need to be multi versatile. So knowing how to interview on Zoom is definitely a huge advantage that a lot of people didn't have, and a lot of older generations don't have. And I think I saw it too, even from a standpoint of being an interviewee. But employers interviewing was tough for them to get that energy across the screen. So I think you guys are in a good spot where you know how to transition digitally, and that is going to be so valuable down the road. So I think just at least through the interview process, practicing and honing in on your skills, through the screen is a big deal. And just figure out different tactics. How do you can convey your energy to them through a screen is I think a really effective mechanism. But just like Chris said, like if you do find yourself working remote or what have you, definitely build make your space comfortable for you. Because I think at least I found it in my remote position that I had is I woke up and I went to bed in my office, and that is a super, it could really screw you up mentally. So I had to learn that balance of shutting the laptop off meant like no work. And I found myself on the road working, at the dinner table working, and that can get really, really toxic. So really building in a structure that you can follow, whether it's 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever, your remote schedule is, but making sure you find time to also take self-care into yourself, because your mental health is super important. And that doesn't mean just, more screen time out of that. I mean, really like going outside or going to other lanes where you can get out of your house, because your house does unfortunately become your office as well. So just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of all of that is super important. I mean, company culture is something that was so valuable and is so valuable, and companies are working really hard at how to maintain that culture when people are home. But I think you highlight an important point, Chris, of like create that culture for yourself while you're home, still find those ways to like connect with your coworkers and colleagues. But like you highlighted too, Khalil, like finding that separation. What you shared, I think rings true for a lot of people. Once you work from home, you lose that separation of like work and home. And those two start to like blend together. So kind of learning to shut your laptop off and like walk downstairs and make that separation. So great, thank you. So we've chatted about job searching and tactics for finding a job. Can each of you share one or two interview tips that you think would be helpful for students? Because the job search is just one aspect, and then you find yourself at the interview stage and getting yourself through that process, which can be a full process in its own.
Yeah, I think so. I'd say two of them so the first one would be any job you apply to, really, and you have an interview for, really study the job posting, the job description that's sent to you. It sounds so obvious, but like that's what they're going to ask questions about. So, if they say they want someone with communication skills, have a story about how well you communicate with other people. Or if they want to know about your experience in a content management system, talk about how much work you did in WordPress when you were at St. Joe's in the communications department. So like things of that nature, like really go through bullet by bullet and just study those. And then my second piece of advice would be take almost every interview you get, because you're going to fail a lot. And the more you fail, you get better at failing, and eventually you don't fail. Like there's a great book by a comedian, Chris Gethard. I don't know what it's called. It's something about failing. But he talks about he like fell on his face and he became better for it. So you're going to interview for dream companies, and you may, not succeed, or, you may have your heart broken, but you just got to stay positive and realize that that's all in the process. You're going to gain more interview experience through those challenges and through those. You hear so many different questions in interviews that the more you hear them and the more interviews you're taking, even if you're not in a job or company, you get better as an interviewer. You know what types of questions you're going to get asked. You know what answers you're going to give that knock it out of the park when you're on a good interview.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Khalil.
Yeah, Chris, you kind of harped on the last thing you said, but a thing, the more interviews you go into, the more rejection you face. It gets a little hurts your confidence a tad bit, for sure, to get turned down that many times. But one thing that I try to do, which I think really helps me get a sense of perspective, is not to take it personally. So I did actually practice interviewing. I would interview like my mom, my brother, my sister, and that actually taught me how to be a better interviewee. Just because I was the one asking the questions, I was looking for what I wanted to hear, kind of, and what I wanted to kind of gain for that. And it's kind of a silly mechanism, but actually putting yourself in the interviewer's perspective kind of gives you a sense of like lost pressure going into it, because you're not so focused on taking it personally, because the perspectives and what each, I guess, perspective is looking for. And then secondly, I would just say like really come interested in the company, like wear your interest on your face, kind of, and ask questions, and really study the company. I mean, I know for this particular job that I have now, when I was getting interviewed, they asked me to like what I would do different to a graphic, and I talked them through it, but I couldn't show them. So I didn't get the job yet, obviously, and I got sent on my way. But I went home and I actually modeled up a graphic and sent him like 5 or 6, and with like statistics and analytics. That right there just like proves like I'm interested. Like no one asked me to do that, but I drafted up. I put in extra work outside of it. So just really like showing interest, I think, goes a long way. So I think those two are ones that I have.
Yeah, great. Thank you both so much for that advice. I think interviewing brings a lot of anxiety and nerves for people. So having those tips, I'm sure is nothing but helpful. So before we transition into our question and answer portion, I just want to ask you each to share one thing you wish someone told you when you were in school.
Okay. I guess that it would work out in the end, I guess. I don't know. I think that when you're graduating, you're so much unknown about what's after your time at St. Joe's. And I really think one thing that I really need to tell myself a lot of the time was it'll work out in the end. It'll, like I said, you're going to fail. You're going to figure it out as you go. You fake it till you make it in a lot of different positions in your career. And eventually, you do it long enough that you have a really strong resume. You have, good experiences that you can take to other companies or, stay wherever if you want to stay for a long time someplace. So yeah, I think just it's a Philly school, so I guess trust the process. Just that's what I would say, I guess.
Awesome. Khalil.
Yeah, something that I even told myself, and I wish I still told this, and professors have told me, multiple people told me this, but like you're not gonna have it figured out, and I mean that in a twofold type of way. You have to really fall in love with the fact. You have to fall in love with being ignorant to the fact that you don't know what's going on, because that's the exciting part. Like, you're in college, you're about to step into this next chapter. But I think it's really important to just understand that, like, it's so cool having it all not figured out, because through that, I think you can actually really find yourself and find what you love to do. And I think that's all that matters. And it's easier said than done to tell you not to worry about grades or finals. And that's what I was told. But it didn't stop it to when I was, up late at night, stressing and having panic attacks, all that kind of stuff, right? Like, I know college students have when it comes down to grades and all that kind of stuff. Easier said than done, but really fall in love with that process, because it's hard to get very vulnerable and personable with the hardships of not knowing what's going on. But at the same time, you can actually find a lot of appreciation and enjoyment in what's to come. And so that's what I would really hone in on.
Yeah, that's great. Trust the process and embrace the unknown and uncertainty. Two really great pieces of advice. So thank you. So transitioning into our Q&A portion, students, if you have questions, please use the raise hand, and I'll call on you and you can unmute yourself, or if you feel more comfortable, you can throw your question in the chat. So ask away.
This is the awkward part, right? Yeah, that's right. Those are people who wait.
Yes, Steve, go ahead.
Hey, Chris and Khalil, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. I have a selfish question for you, but one that might be helpful to other people too. I heard you talk a little bit about classes and the importance of, I guess, that classes are unimportant and they're also important, right? Like, I think I'm one of those profs who say, don't worry so much about grades. This is easy for me to say, but getting to my questions about classes and a selfish question, I'm curious about some of the coursework that was helpful either in COM or not. And then also, what do you wish you took a class in, or what do you wish COM offered that would be helpful? I talk about this sometime in my job, and I say, man, they didn't teach me this part of my job in school. I wish they would have. What is that for you, do you think?
That's a trick.
I do have, oh, Chris, go ahead, so sorry.
Oh, Khalil, if you have an idea, let me think on it.
No problem. So yeah, I was gonna say, this is big for me, Stephen, and you know this. But uh, digital fields, I took 200 with my clients on those too, but short form content has actually probably been the best thing that I could have learned how to do. And so when you're strict about, not going over 3 minutes or 2 minutes or a minute, how frustrating it is to not get that much content in. And, even if it's one, a video that you want to go over 3 minutes, but it can't, that's the, I know you're strict about that. That I will say that if you are in content creation, that is probably the number one fact like that you could learn. I mean, it really is that important to tell a story in short form content. It really is the future, and I've been pushing that here at my workplace. But digital fields, I know, especially just doing the hands-on work like that, but making short form content with audio, video, all that kind of stuff, editing, all that kind of stuff, and I really do think that not only making short form content, but flipping it fast, because your efficiency is your profit, and jobs see that. And so I ran into a problem too where it's kind of the job's first segue into video with me, and they don't, it's hard to convey upload times. I'm sure we've all had that where you're uploading a video. It's not gonna get done when you can't make it upload faster. So flipping your edits faster, creating content, telling a story in a very short way is gonna increase your marketing tenfold. It's gonna make you way more of a selling point in your content creating job. So I think those were classes that stuck out to me, was those short form content classes.
I'll say, having thought about it, I think that I got a lot of my business type courses more so in my minor, obviously, because I took marketing as a minor. I think communications department as a whole, it may have changed since I've been there. It's been a while now, I guess. There are a lot of things like within content creation, like Khalil mentioned, that a lot of the jobs are within the business world and in marketing. So, when you start out at St. Joe's too, in the comm department, I think a lot of those content that we were doing was very personal, interest-based stuff that you're growing your passion. And I think to be a little more professionally minded and think marketing minded within those courses would have been helpful for me. I think to know how to properly, show a narrative and show a company's goals. That was something that I think I had to learn more so outside of the classroom. But overall, I think a lot of the key tools that you learn at St. Joe's are stuff that really helps on a resume. Like, even like, you're wearing so many hats in these jobs that the one semester of Photoshop I took was like crucial in so many different positions, or video editing, things of that nature, where like I was taking these courses because they looked interesting to me, and electives as well. I was taking a lot of electives that I thought would, but those tools are really important because just even a semester or two of a certain tool is enough for a company to understand that you are, you're adding value to their day-to-day.
So looks like we've gotten a few more questions in the chat. Is there anything you both would have done differently in school to help ready yourself for professional life?
I would say my resume was something that I really didn't. When you start at a school or when you start making a resume, it looks very bland, I guess. You don't really put in a lot of work into it initially. You kind of just, a lot of, I started off and mine was just a white sheet with the words that I wrote. But you guys are in luck where you have design experience now from your time in the communications department. Like, you don't really have an excuse to be putting out like a really standard resume. And so that's something I would definitely encourage is, spice it up, make it look more appealing to the eye, because you know how many resumes recruiters look at every day. It's a lot. So that's something that I probably should have thought about more during my time at St. Joe's. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I would say this COVID helped me with this too, because I don't know if I would have started right away, but I keep kind of coming back to this, but you know, at least in the content department, when you're doing those classes, like a lot of that, if you're into content creation, like you're learning those skills that I really would have gone back and I would have started creating content. You know, when I first got into the comm school, I didn't start until my senior year, doing like little podcast things or like little my own like storytelling videos, like that kind of stuff. I would have started way before that and just created something. You don't have to even share it. Like it's something that it's so underrated because, you know, I know time is of the essence and we have our social life, and we have classes, we have our projects for our classes, and we have that. But really, like if you just take the time to try those things out separately, you know, maybe you didn't like it. That was what I found. I found that I didn't like certain, you know, criteria for things. I didn't like doing a podcast on this. So I was like, okay, I'll just take what I learned and just do an audio project outside of the classroom that I like. I would have started that way sooner. So really build that up because that gets put into your portfolio. And I will say the job that I got offers from didn't ask me about my resume. They asked me about my portfolio because they care about what you can do, not about, you know, what it says on paper. So I really would have gone back and started earlier.
Yeah, great advice. And that actually connects to another question in the chat. Other than internships, what can I do outside of class now to create content for my resume? So Khalil, you just kind of spoke a little bit about building up your portfolio, getting, you know, some experience outside, you know, start your own podcast or things like that. But is there anything additional that either of you want to add?
I would echo basically everything Khalil said, like get ahead of it, do things, you know, personally that, you know, outside of the classroom. It doesn't even have to be a club, but I remember I applied for an internship where they wanted podcast experience. We weren't doing a lot of audio at St. Joe's Com at the time. It sounds like you guys have done a lot more since. So I remember I was like, before the interview, I just like made a podcast and I was like, here, I have audio experience. Here's all this. Like, so I just get ahead of, don't be like me and for, but like build out things that are interesting to you for your portfolio. So whether it's a podcast, whether it's a website, whether it's a portfolio of designs you've created, all these things are crucial and are just added notches in your belt that recruiters and companies are really going to love to see.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of subside your question and come back to it real quick, Marissa, but that your content that you create outside the classroom, a lot of people, at least me, I was like, oh, I can't I've never done a podcast before. I've never done a video interview. I've never edited a video together before. It's going to suck. Like my content's going to suck. And like, while that may be the case, like it still is not an excuse to create because whatever you do is going to show up through you, you know? So like you starting your own thing or whatever. And I don't know, Marissa, if you like food or whatever, like literally like whatever you like, sports, travel, whatever, you could do yourself a favor and write 5 blogs about, you know, top 10 places you would like to travel or something like that. Like whatever content you can think of, you have the tools, you have the department to go to. Bronstein's right there. You know, it really isn't. The only thing stopping you from creating content, if you want to, of course, is you. Because I really do believe that whatever you guys do is going to show up through you. So it's not going to be seen as bad or not good. It really is important that you take the shot and try it out.
Yeah, awesome. Never too early to start getting all of that stuff started. So it looks like the last question posted in the chat, bringing us back to kind of our Zoom era and being online. Any tips specifically for if either of you have experience interviewing over Zoom or any other web platform and how to get your personality across over the screen?
I think to be emotive, I guess, is something that I never thought of myself as like a hands talker, but when you're doing an interview, like the more you like put, I don't even want to say like physical like movement, but just try to be lively, try to get yourself like worked up before, so you're prepared to convey, natural interaction and emotions in an interview versus when you're in a screen, it's kind of difficult to really convey. I agree, it's tough to really let your personality shine. So, little things, just, even if you have to talk into a mirror when you're interviewing yourself beforehand, like those things can prepare you for these type of digital settings. I don't think it's too big of a difference really in between like live interviews and digital interviews. But there are little instances. And if you want to get your personality out, I would just recommend, doing as many interviews as you can. I keep saying it, but yeah. And, just if you want to let your personality shine, like dress how you dress, how, just do things that get your personality out there. So that everything visually is appealing, especially like little things too, like backgrounds. Make sure your background, like I guess I could be doing a better job of that today, but I'm on my phone. But like be organized in your backgrounds, your attire, your technology, so everything is as clear as can be. So there's no, I've been on interviews before where it's like, oh, you cut out, and then like 5 minutes go by and you've already lost, a fifth of your interview time. So those situations stink. They're going to happen probably in the pandemic type era. But yeah, I guess just try to be as organized as you can with your technology and sort of your layout for different platforms, and have them downloaded beforehand. So not everyone uses just Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever. A lot of different platforms. If you're doing, 2 minutes before the interview starts and getting that set up, then it might be late. So small piece of advice there.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I don't see too much of a difference between digital and in person. I think a big thing to an interview tip, whether it's behind the screen, especially behind the screen, is I think a lot of people think professional means scripted, and that's just simply not the case. Like, scripted answers, it makes the interview boring for you and for your employer. So I think just make sure you're yourself and you're talking loosely and you're making a point to actually connect with them and you're talking to them, not kind of at your screen or through them. It goes a long way, because I know it kind of seems like you have to have these scripted answers or whatever, but at the same time, I think any professional can really appreciate authenticity. And I think it should definitely, obviously, I think it should be shown through in a multitude of different ways. So speaking naturally and to the best of your ability, I think is the best you can do. So yeah.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you both. So we are just about up on time. Really great questions, though. If anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to email myself or Chris and Khalil, if it would be okay with you, directing additional questions your way as well. But I want to take a minute to thank you both for joining us today and for providing such great insight into your careers. We are really grateful for the time and hope to see you back on Hawk Hill soon. And again, viewers, just as a reminder, this session was recorded and will be posted on our YouTube in about a week to rewatch and see anything again. But I hope everyone has a great day, and thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you guys so much for having us.
Thanks. Yeah, it was great to meet everybody.